Happy Thursday, everyone. How are you? Welcome to our weekly live stream. If you can, post your name and the state that you are located. I would love to say hello. If you're watching live in our group, hello. Welcome to our weekly live stream. If you can please post your name and where you're located, that would be awesome. And we'll get started in a few minutes. If you could, I'm just going to try to mute everyone, but as you're coming in, if you can mute yourself, that would be awesome. Hi, Debbie. Good to see you. David is in Tucson, Arizona. Is it hot there? So I'm kind of like a weather freak. I'm pretty sure I was like a weather person in my other life, but the weather has changed here in Chicagoland. It was like 80s last week, and now it is super chilly, although it says 54. So allergies have definitely hit home for my family this week. Suzanne is in California. Welcome. Markeisha, hopefully I said that right. If not, let me know. Minnesota, great. I haven't had anyone in Minnesota in a while. Welcome. So today we're going to talk about protecting yourself. And so I want to start with, I've never really had any issues before, but it's really important to have specific verbiage in your listings. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. Virginia Beach. Awesome. I said it right. So my kids have very unique names. Hi. And so I always hate when I mispronounce something. So Markeisha actually flows really well. So awesome. All right, today we're going to be talking about specific verbiage that you should have inside of your short sale listing. And so I am going to give a free copy to anyone who is on the call today or who is watching live. And so I'm just going to post my Facebook, and you can send me a message sometime throughout this presentation, and we will send you a link as soon as it's over. I mean, I'm going to review it all, but sometimes, you know, who wants to take notes, right? All right, so there's my Facebook. Send me a message. Just say, hey, I was on the live stream, and we will get you a copy of the verbiage. But in the meantime, we're going to go over what it is and why. Want a copy of the verbiage? Send a message here. All righty. So who here has some short sale listings going on right now? Anyone? Debbie, I know you're finishing yours up. We are also finishing up ours. So we have about 3 that we're getting ready to close on. And all of my listings have this verbiage. So I'm going to tell you what it is. Like I said, if you want a copy, send me a message. My Facebook link is right there. You could also send me an email too, if you prefer. But it's easier through Facebook because my team has access to that. So if you could send me a message, that would be ideal. Hi, Valerie. How are you? Valerie is in New York. Welcome. All right, so I'm going to say the verbiage, and then we'll talk about why. Hi, Daphne in Ohio. Why I use this, and I'll give a past experience as well. Letting some more people in. All right, so this is the verbiage I have. So you have obviously the remarks for the listing, and then you're going to have the agent remarks. This is going to go in the broker agent remarks, okay? So this is what I say. Must be an arm's length transaction. Buyer and buyer's agent cannot be the same and cannot be related. And we'll touch on this in a second. Bank will not allow, no exceptions. Inspection must be completed prior to us submitting the short sale offer packet to the bank. Ooh, hold on, I'm gonna pause. Okay, just make sure you're muting yourself. No exceptions. Blueprint Short Sales is highly experienced with short sales, no third-party company, all negotiations done in-house. Sold as is, one mortgage. Please allow ample time for lender approval. Any reduction in commission will be split 50-50 between listing agent and buyer's agent. So like I said, if you guys want a copy of that, just send me a message, but I'm going to go through as to why I've been using this verbiage for quite some time because I think it's important. I would love to know if there are people in here that are currently doing short sales, or what is your market like right now? So if you can touch on that. I would say, and Debbie, maybe you have a comment, 50% of what I'm taking on right now is a short sale. I would say the other 50%, I call them equity sales. So yes, they're behind on their mortgage, but they do have that equity. However, it's still complicated. So I'm seeing HOA liens, sometimes some tax liens. But I do think the market is shifting. Something's got to give. And I've been following that data. So this verbiage is really going to help all of you come the new year or when your market does try to shift. So must be an arm's length transaction. Buyer and buyer's agent cannot be related. Why is that so important? Well, back in the day, they considered this like foreclosure bailout. So they do not want any properties to be related. So like Debbie is in Chicagoland with me. So if I was related to Debbie and she was facing foreclosure, I could not list for her house and negotiate the short sale because I am related to her, okay? Or I get these people who contact me and say, hey, Heather, I'm behind on my mortgage. I want to do a short sale, but can my mom buy it, or can my cousin buy it? No, they cannot. So all parties have to sign an arm's length transaction addendum. Sometimes it's done at the beginning. Sometimes it's done at the end. So you always want to do the right thing, right? So you're not like looking over your shoulder. Oh, let me give you a quick story on this. Maybe some of you have heard it before. So I had a short sale. This was a couple years ago, and I got it from a referral from my attorney. It was a very complicated case. So they actually had two mortgages. They had a mechanics lien on the title because the roof wasn't paid. They were going through a divorce at the time. They were also going through bankruptcy. And during this process, he passed away. So I know, Debbie, right? This is super, super complicated. So it took a very long time, but I got an offer on the property. And all of my verbiage says this. And if you were on one of our live streams a few weeks ago, one of the live streams was, what are the 4 questions I ask a buyer's agent prior to my seller accepting an offer? So if you want access to that live stream, just let me know and I can tag you. You can send me a message along with that. But when an offer comes through, those questions get emailed back to them before my seller accepts the offer. And so the offer came through. The buyer's agent was related to the buyer. It was his nephew. And he was the managing broker of his office. And I just said, hey, look, we can't move forward with this because you are related to the buyer. The bank is going to have an issue with this. And he basically told me I was crazy and that he demanded me to submit this offer. And so, okay, let's go ahead and submit the offer. So I did, and it took about several months, close to a year, to get this done because of all of the complications. We finally were getting ready to get this approved, and guess what? The negotiator said, hey, Heather, what is going on? Can they please write a letter as to how they're related? So I did that. I knew what was coming, and I kind of just had to laugh in the back of my head. And the agent or the negotiator at the bank said, we cannot pay the buyer's agent because they are related. And so I went back to him. I told him that. I didn't say I told you so, but I was like, I did explain this to you at the beginning. And then the bank also said, if they resubmit it in another buyer's agent's name, they have this account flagged. So regardless, this buyer is not going to get, the buyer's agent for this particular buyer is not going to get paid. So we ended up closing it. And of course, he was like, I'm going to sue you, blah, blah, blah. But I have that in my listing. I'm very clear up front. So hopefully he learned his lesson there. So I'm encouraging all of you to have the specific verbiage, ask those 4 questions, get it in an email, because have I dealt with an issue like that before? No, but you do want to protect yourself, right? So if you have questions about that, happy to answer. I always say no questions are silly or stupid, so go ahead and post in the chat. So that is my main reason why putting that in the verbiage for the listing, okay? The next thing is inspection must be completed prior to us submitting the short sale offer. So that's a little confusing at times. So why do I have that? Well, in a short sale situation, there are no credits. Sometimes a bank will allow a buyer's closing cost credit, but it just depends, okay? And so I'm very clear up front with that as well. But let's just say you go in, you submit the offer, and they do the home inspection after it's approved, okay? And they're like, oh, like we want a credit for $10,000 because of this, this, and this. No, it is sold as is, period, okay? A bank is not gonna make any repairs. The seller's not responsible, nor are you. So I realized like, okay, I have to put this in the listing. And that is one of the 4 questions I do ask is, hey, is your buyer willing to do the home inspection after our seller signs the offer, but before we submit it to the bank, okay? If it's a no, then typically we would just move on. If it's so, you know, obviously our sellers have to make the final decision. If you really, really need an offer, like say there's an auction date coming up or something, then you may reconsider it. But most of the time, I just don't want any issues. So like we're getting ready to get 3 short sales approved. 1 did not do an inspection and the other 2 have already done it, okay? So just for the sake of any headaches down the road, do the same, okay? Okay, so Daphne, so the agent can't be related to, yeah, so no parties can be related at all. So like if the listing agent cannot be related to the buyer or the seller, buyer's agent, buyer cannot be related. No parties can be related at all, okay? So just so you know. All right, so next up. Now, I do put in there that my team is highly experienced in short sales. You don't have to add that in. And then I also just let everyone know that all negotiations are done in-house. So everyone does these a little bit different. Some people may hire a negotiations company. I'm not a huge fan of that. Maybe we'll have another live stream as to why. But I have done all of the negotiations in-house. So what does that mean? So for many years, it was actually me and my husband handling the calls to the banks and pushing it through. We call a certain day, a certain time every single week, and that has been the same for 17 years, okay? Now, because I knew and I dealt with that for so many years, I was able to properly delegate that task out to my transaction coordinator. So now that is her job to call the banks and get updates. I'm still hands-on. I always know what's going on throughout the process, but it's great because that is another reason why I built such great relationships with attorneys. They could call you and say, hey, Heather, where's this at in the process? And you'll be able to know right away. If you're using a negotiations company, that's not going to be the case. So I do encourage the negotiations to be done in-house. Depending on your area, that may not be possible, but you would just take that part out of the verbiage. Sold as is. Obviously, all short sales are sold as is. If you are handling an equity sale and they have that equity, but they're behind and there's complications, I would still consider doing an as-is sale, because remember, it's really about the sellers. They're struggling. They're going through a lot. They probably do not have any money to make any repairs. And a lot of times, there's a lot of deferred maintenance because they haven't made the payment. They don't have the money, okay? So make sure you put as is. And then I do let everyone know, is there 1 mortgage or there's 2? And so in this particular verbiage, it says 1 mortgage. So when you get the link from me, it does say 1 mortgage. You just want to update that to 2 mortgages if it's 2. Or if you're lucky enough to get a 3 mortgage one, just update it to 3. Those are not fun. If you do get one, we should probably connect before that. I also put in there, please allow ample time for lender approval. So everyone always says, how long do these short sales take? Well, it ultimately depends on who the servicer is, who backs the loan. I would say typically 3 to 6 months, depending, okay? Fannie may be a little bit less, FHA may be a little bit more, depending on if they went through the loan mod or not, okay? So that's another one of the questions I ask is like, hey, is your buyer willing to wait? Because this does take time, okay? So just very important to put that in there, okay? The other thing is really big. So this is the last part of what we put in there. It says any reduction in commission will be split 50-50 between the listing agent and the buyer's agent. So let me explain that and give you a quick past experience on that. So I put that in there because, you know, most banks, and I think I asked this before, but happy if you want to calculate an average sale price in your area, you know, let's just say it's 400,000. Most banks are going to pay 3.5%. Okay. So at 400,000, 3.5% is 14,000. Okay. So if you're just closing one deal a month, that's well over 6 figures. Okay. So most banks will pay 3.5% to the list side, the buy side 2.5%. Okay. Do some banks cut it? Yes. I would say once a year, I probably have that problem. In fact, so the 3 that are getting ready to close, there's actually a 4th one that we're getting ready to finalize. It's the one in Mount Prospect, Debbie. And the bank is Saline Finance. So if you get a Saline Finance, yeah, they're okay to deal with, but they're going to cut the commission. So I'm only making 2.5% on that. But you know what? It is what it is. Please, for the love of God, do not go to the seller and say, oh, the bank's not paying me 3.5%. I want that 1%. No, like I tell these people that, hey, they may cut the commission. It is what it is. Our main focus and mission is to help these homeowners avoid foreclosure. Okay. So very, very important. So yeah, most banks are going to pay that 3.5%, 2.5% to the buy side. Now, in some rare instances, and I haven't had this happen in a very long time, but you still want to have this in your verbiage, a bank will say, okay, I'm only going to pay 4%. Now, the last time this happened to me was probably right before the pandemic. And I actually cannot even remember what bank it was, but it was a higher price deal. It was in Evanston, Illinois. And there was just a lot going on. They hadn't made a mortgage payment in 10 years. There was some back owed HOA payments. So I don't know if that had to do with the 4%. But in that case, I had to go back to the buyer's agent and say, hey, look, I have this in my listing and we have to split it. So you're going to get 2% and I'm going to get 2%. So anyways, that is the verbiage. What questions can I answer for you? Maybe it's about that. Maybe it's about short sales. Maybe you have a deal going on right now. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Are there any questions from today's live stream? Daphne, I got to yours. Go ahead and either unmute yourself or you can post it in the chat and I'll just check on the live stream as well. Group today. What are the 4 questions? Okay. You know what? We can go back to those if you would like that, but I can still send you the copies. So as you're messaging me, ask for that and I can send that replay to you. Okay, so the 4 questions that we ask are, well, the first one is, are any of the parties related? So when an offer comes in, I do respond, or my team will respond to the email and ask them these questions. And then I would say, hey, can you please respond back? Then I typically will save that email. A lot of times I will download it to a PDF and just put it in the file. So buyer and buyer's agent cannot be the same and cannot be related. Is the buyer and buyer's agent related? So I do ask that. And then I also ask, is the buyer willing to complete the home inspection once our seller signs the offer, but before the packet is submitted to the bank? So that's a pretty big one because you certainly don't want to have any headaches down the road. The third question is your buyer willing to negotiate if the bank makes a counteroffer? And so that's also really important because we don't know. Like ultimately in the end, it is up to the short sale bank. Okay. Your seller just has to be involved because they're on the title. They really don't have any say. So it is very possible that the bank may make a counteroffer. So that's always good to know. And then the other question is your buyer willing to wait, since this is a short sale and it does take time to complete? Now, the couple short sales that we just accepted, it's actually the second offer. And so I already went through the entire short sale process and I was able to relist it as an approved short sale. So those short sales should not take that long. And you can certainly update the verbiage for that. I usually just put in approved short sale, no waiting, offer must be at that approved price. So there's that. Like I said, we did do a whole live stream on those 4 questions. So if you want a copy or a link, then just message me as well. All right, so there's some questions. Daphne, I have done the split as listing 3.5 and buyers at 2. Okay, so I would sign the listing at 6%. You're probably leaving money on the table, and these short sales do take time. And so you do deserve to get the 3.5%. So if the bank's going to pay it, Daphne, give yourself 3.5 and the buyer's 2.5. Okay. Because of all the hard work I put in. Yeah. And the buyer's agent has not because of their, yeah. So try next time, put it in at 6% and give 3.5 to your side. Yeah. So the replay, send me a message here. I'll post my link again. If you want any replays or a copy of this verbiage, just send me a private message on Facebook. You can also email, but private message is better. Okay, so I have a short sale with Mr. Cooper. Oh, good old Mr. Cooper. Okay. Mr. Cooper is done through Equator. Okay, so this is someone private messaging me. So the bank wanted a $620K and we currently have a buyer. We were just negotiating the price. All of a sudden they sent out to do another BPO and the bank increased it to 666. So yeah, it is so important that if you're going to do these short sales, please try to surround yourself with a community that understands this. And so I've had this happen many times before, Diana. And so really what happened is the 620, there was a BPO, sometimes an appraisal, sometimes both done. I keep track of that in my calendar because if you cannot get a buyer in like the 120-day time frame, sometimes it's 90, sometimes it's 6 months, it just depends, then yeah, they are going to have to send out another person. And it could be, even if you're asking for an extension on the approval letter, it opens up a can of worms. Try to get it done inside of that time frame. So yeah, if it increased to 666, that kind of sticks. It has happened to me before. My guess is it a Fannie Mae deal? They should negotiate off of the 666 unless it's FHA. Oh, Fannie Mae. Okay, awesome. So if you haven't already, Fannie Mae is like the best ever. So I would love to chat with you further if you want to send me a message on Facebook. But Fannie Mae, you should be able to get it approved for lower than that. Let me just look at the numbers. Is there work that needs to be done? Yes. Okay. So if you don't agree with the value, you could certainly do a value dispute. Like I said, just send me a message. But Fannie Mae, you could potentially get it still approved for the 620. So you just kind of have to push Fannie Mae a little bit. But with it being Fannie Mae, that is probably one of the best scenarios. So yay. Any other questions? All right, let me just see if the live feed has any questions. Otherwise, we'll be back. We're here every single Thursday at 11 a.m. Next week's going to be a pretty big one. We're going to talk maybe about some direct mail marketing. Again, a lot of this stuff, we want you to attend live because I'm going to try to give some free things during the live sessions, but we always have the replays, okay? All right, if there's no other questions, then I think we're good for today. Make sure you private message me. I will send you a copy of the verbiage for the listings. And then if you also want a replay of the 4 questions I asked, please send me a message. Otherwise, thanks and have a blessed day.